If you enjoyed this audiobook, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the audiobook. Chapter 1, The Quest for Wealth in Ancient Babylon. Part 1, The Plight of Kobbi and Bansir. The morning sun cast long shadows across ancient Babylon's workshop district, where the rhythmic hammering of Kobbi's tools echoed against stone walls. Despite his reputation as the city's finest chariot builder, Kobbi's leather purse remained stubbornly thin. Nearby, his friend Bansir wove reeds with practiced precision, yet his skillful hands had failed to weave him any lasting prosperity. Their situation mirrors countless modern workers who discover that expertise alone doesn't guarantee financial security. Consider today's skilled craftsmen, software engineers, more master mechanics who excel in their trades yet struggle to build meaningful wealth. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reveals that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of their skill level or industry expertise. Kobbi and Bansir's daily routine followed a familiar pattern. They worked from sunrise to sunset, earned their coins, spent them on necessities and small pleasures, then returned to work the next day with empty pockets. This cycle trapped them in what behavioral economists now call the income replacement trap. Their labor generated income, but that income immediately flowed out to cover immediate needs and desires. The two friends often gathered after work, sharing their frustrations about wealthy merchants who seemed to accumulate riches effortlessly. They wondered why their diligent efforts yielded so little lasting reward, while others appeared to multiply their wealth without breaking a sweat. This observation reflects a truth that Harvard Business School professor Clayton Christensen documented. Many people confuse activity with achievement, mistaking being busy for building wealth. Their conversations revealed a critical blind spot. Both men possessed valuable skills and steady income streams, yet neither understood the fundamental difference between earning money and keeping money. They had never learned to make their earnings work for them beyond the immediate exchange of labor for coins. Modern research by financial planner David Bach shows that Americans typically increase their spending to match their income, a phenomenon called lifestyle inflation. Kobbi and Bansir experienced this ancient version of the same trap. As their skills improved and their rates increased, their expenses grew proportionally, leaving them no closer to financial freedom. What made their situation particularly frustrating was witnessing former classmates like Arkad, who had started with similar circumstances but somehow transformed himself into Babylon's wealthiest citizen. This comparison haunted them daily. Much like how social media comparisons affect modern workers who see peers achieving financial success while they remain stuck. Their plight represents millions of hardworking individuals who possess everything needed for financial success, except the knowledge of how money actually grows. They had the ingredients but lacked the recipe. This realization would eventually drive them to seek answers that would change their financial destinies forever. Part 2. Arkad's early failures and lessons. When Arkad first appeared before his desperate friends, their assumption was simple. He had always possessed some magical gift for accumulating gold. The truth, however, proved far more humbling and encouraging. Before becoming Babylon's most prosperous citizen, Arkad had experienced crushing failures that left him questioning his very worth as a man. As a young scribe, copying laws onto clay tablets, Arkad earned barely enough to survive. His situation mirrors that of countless modern professionals who work diligently yet find themselves living paycheck to paycheck. What made Arkad's early years particularly painful was watching his meager earnings disappear as quickly as they arrived, leaving him with nothing to show for his labor except worn fingers and tired eyes. The turning point came during a period of desperate hunger. Arkad had worked for weeks without proper meals, his stomach gnawing at his ribs while he mechanically inscribed legal documents. One evening, after calculating that his earnings wouldn't cover even basic necessities, he reached what psychologists today call rock bottom, that crucial moment when continuing the same patterns becomes impossible. This crisis forced Arkad to confront an uncomfortable reality that many people avoid. His poverty wasn't caused by circumstances beyond his control, but by his complete ignorance of how money actually worked. Just as someone might struggle to build furniture without understanding woodworking principles, Arkad had been trying to build wealth without grasping financial fundamentals. The breakthrough came when Arkad made a decision that transformed everything. He actively sought out someone who had already achieved what he desired. Instead of assuming wealth was reserved for the fortunate few, he approached the problem like a craft to be learned. This shift in thinking, from viewing wealth as luck to seeing it as a learnable skill, became the foundation of his eventual success. Arkad's willingness to admit ignorance and seek instruction parallels how successful entrepreneurs today approach new ventures. Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, spent months learning about manufacturing and retail before launching her billion-dollar company. She didn't assume she knew everything. She found mentors and absorbed their knowledge. The most profound lesson from Arkad's early struggles wasn't about specific financial techniques, but about the power of deciding to learn. His transformation began not when he discovered money-making secrets, but when he acknowledged his need for education. This humility opened doors that pride and assumption had kept firmly closed. What separated Arkad from his peers wasn't superior intelligence or better circumstances, but his recognition that wealth building required specific knowledge and his commitment to acquiring that knowledge, regardless of the cost to his ego. This decision would soon lead him to encounter the mentor who would change his financial destiny forever. Part 3. The Secrets Learned from Algamish. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from chance encounters that seem almost too convenient to be real. When a wealthy moneylender named Algamish requested clay tablets copied in his private chamber, young Arkad saw only another tedious scribing job. What he discovered instead was a conversation that would reshape his understanding of money forever. Algamish had accumulated vast wealth through decades of methodical financial discipline. Unlike the flashy merchants who displayed their riches openly, he understood that true wealth grew in silence, compounding year after year through simple yet powerful principles. As Arkad worked late into the evening transcribing legal documents, curiosity finally overcame his hesitation. The question that changed everything was remarkably simple. "Sir, I work hard, but remain poor. What secret do the wealthy possess that I do not?" Algamish paused his review of loan agreements and studied the earnest young scribe. What followed was not mystical wisdom or complex investment strategies, but foundational truths that wealthy families had passed down through generations. The first principle Algamish shared contradicted everything Arkad believed about money management. For every 10 coins earned, one must be kept permanently, not borrowed against during difficult months, not spent on unexpected opportunities, not touched for family emergencies. This coin belongs to your future self, growing into the foundation of financial independence. Consider how Warren Buffett began building his fortune in the 1950s. He consistently saved portions of every paycheck from his early newspaper delivery jobs, never spending these designated funds, regardless of immediate wants or social pressures. This discipline, established in childhood, became the bedrock of his investment empire worth over $100 billion today. Algamish then introduced the concept that would truly transform Arkad's financial trajectory: making saved money work actively. Simply storing coins accomplishes nothing beyond preservation. Wealthy individuals understand that money must generate additional money through careful lending, business partnerships, or productive investments. The historical record shows how the Medici family of Renaissance Italy applied these exact principles. They began as wool merchants, but systematically reinvested profits into banking operations, real estate acquisitions, and strategic business partnerships. Each generation built upon the previous foundation, eventually becoming one of Europe's most influential financial dynasties. But Algamish warned against the common trap that destroys many promising wealth builders. Believing that initial success indicates mastery, he had witnessed countless individuals lose their first profits through overconfidence and poor judgment. True wealth requires patience, continuous learning, and the wisdom to distinguish between genuine opportunities and attractive illusions. These conversations continued for months as Arkad completed various copying projects. Each session revealed additional layers of financial wisdom that challenged his assumptions about earning, saving, and investing. The principles seemed almost impossibly simple, yet their consistent application had created the vast fortunes throughout Babylon's history. Part 4. The Principle of Paying Yourself First. When Warren Buffett was just 11 years old, he bought his first stock with money he had carefully saved from selling chewing gum and Coca-Cola bottles. Before purchasing anything else, young Warren consistently set aside a portion of every dollar he earned. This habit, instilled early, would become the bedrock of his journey to becoming one of history's wealthiest individuals. Algamish's most crucial lesson came with startling simplicity. For every 10 coins you earn, he told Arkad during one of their evening sessions, keep one for yourself. Not for your landlord, not for the clothier, not for the food merchant, for yourself alone. This principle seemed almost too basic to create wealth, yet Algamish insisted it formed the foundation of every fortune in Babylon. The concept challenged everything Arkad thought he knew about money. Like most working people, he believed income existed to cover expenses. Whatever remained after necessities became savings. Algamish reversed this thinking entirely. He demanded that savings come first, treating personal wealth accumulation as the most important expense of all. Modern research confirms this ancient wisdom. A Harvard Business School study following 15,000 workers over 2 decades found that those who automated their savings before any other financial decisions accumulated wealth 40% faster than those who saved whatever remained after expenses. The psychological mechanism proves powerful. When people pay themselves first, they automatically adjust their spending habits to accommodate the reduced available income. Consider the transformation of John D. Rockefeller, who started as a bookkeeper earning $50 monthly. From his very first paycheck, Rockefeller saved $5 before spending anything else. This 10% commitment never wavered, even when his income barely covered basic needs. He viewed this practice not as deprivation, but as paying the most important person in his financial life, his future self. The brilliance of this principle lies in its automaticity. When saving happens first, it removes the daily decision-making that leads to spending creep. Arkad discovered this truth firsthand. During his initial attempts to save leftover money, unexpected expenses always seemed to consume any surplus. Once he began treating his personal savings as his first and most important payment, he found ways to live comfortably on the remaining 9/10. This approach fundamentally changes one's relationship with money. Instead of viewing income as something to spend, it becomes a tool for building future wealth. The practice creates a powerful psychological shift from consumer to investor, from someone who works for money to someone whose money works for them. What makes this principle revolutionary is its simplicity and universality. Whether earning $30,000 or $300,000 annually, setting aside the first 10% before any other financial commitment creates the foundation for lasting wealth. This ancient Babylonian wisdom continues transforming lives today, just as it did for Arkad nearly 4,000 years ago. Chapter 2. The 7 Cures for a Lean Purse. Part 1. Start thy purse to fattening. Warren Buffett discovered this ancient principle when he bought his first stock at age 11 with $114.75 he had saved from delivering newspapers and selling golf balls. That modest beginning, protected through consistent saving habits, eventually grew into a $100 billion fortune. The secret wasn't complicated mathematics or sophisticated investment strategies. It was simply starting his purse to fatten, 1 penny at a time. The most profound wealth-building strategy requires neither exceptional income nor complex financial instruments. Research from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis shows that households saving just 10% of their income accumulate significantly more wealth over decades than higher earners who save nothing. This mathematical reality contradicts our cultural obsession with earning more while ignoring the power of keeping more. Consider the janitor Ronald Reed from Vermont, who died in 2014, leaving behind an $8 million fortune. Reed never earned more than minimum wage, yet he consistently set aside a portion of every paycheck for over 60 years. His secret wasn't discovering hidden investment opportunities or inheriting family wealth. He simply treated his first dollar earned each day as belonging to his future self, not his present desires. The mechanics of starting your purse to fatten operate like compound interest. Small actions create exponential results over time. When you save your first 10%, you're not just preserving money, you're rewiring your relationship with income. Your spending automatically adjusts to the remaining 90%, proving that most purchases we consider essential are actually negotiable. Modern behavioral economics confirms what ancient Babylonian merchants understood intuitively. Dr. Richard Thaler's research on automatic enrollment in retirement plans demonstrates that people save dramatically more when the decision is made once rather than repeatedly. The key lies in creating systems that remove daily willpower from the equation. The coffee shop owner who transfers $50 to savings before checking daily receipts builds wealth differently than the executive who promises to save whatever's left each month. One approach guarantees accumulation. The other ensures disappointment. The difference isn't income level, it's priority sequence. Amazon's Jeff Bezos famously saved money from his Princeton graduation gifts and Wall Street bonuses before launching his company in 1994. That initial capital, preserved through disciplined saving habits, provided the foundation for building one of the world's largest companies. Without first fattening his purse, even the most brilliant business idea would have remained unrealized. Starting your purse to fatten requires treating yourself like your most important client. You wouldn't skip paying essential business expenses, yet many people treat personal savings as optional. Successful wealth builders reverse this thinking, paying themselves first with the same reliability they pay rent or utilities. The path begins with your very next dollar. Not tomorrow's paycheck or next month's bonus. Today's income contains the seed of future prosperity. Every wealthy person in history started with this fundamental step, deciding that a portion of their earnings belonged permanently to them, growing quietly while they lived on the remainder. Part 2. Control Thy Expenditures. When Walmart's early competitors like Kmart and Sears collapsed in the 2000s, analysts discovered a striking difference in their financial DNA. While Kmart spent lavishly on corporate headquarters and executives lived extravagantly, Walmart's leadership maintained Spartan offices and drove modest cars. This expense discipline, practiced from their smallest beginnings, became the foundation that allowed them to weather economic storms and eventually dominate retail. The second cure requires brutal honesty about the difference between what you need and what you want. Your expenses will always expand to match your income unless you consciously control them. This phenomenon, known as lifestyle inflation, has destroyed more financial dreams than any market crash or economic recession. Consider your monthly spending as a garden that requires constant pruning. Without deliberate attention, weeds of unnecessary expenses sprout everywhere. That premium cable package you rarely use, subscription services forgotten in digital corners, dining out that has become routine rather than special. These small leaks create massive financial drains over time. Warren Buffett, despite being worth billions, still lives in the same modest Omaha house he purchased in 1958 for $31,500. He drives an older car and clips coupons for local restaurants. This isn't miserliness, it's financial wisdom in action. He refuses to let his lifestyle consume the resources needed for wealth building. The key lies in questioning every expense before it becomes habit. Ask yourself, does this purchase bring me closer to financial independence or further from it? Will I remember this expense in 6 months? Does this align with my stated financial priorities? Amy and John, a couple from Michigan, discovered this principle when they tracked every expense for 3 months. They found they were spending $400 monthly on convenience, takeout coffee, delivery fees, impulse purchases at checkout lines. By redirecting just half of these convenience costs towards savings, they accumulated an emergency fund within 2 years. Creating artificial constraints forces creative solutions. When you allocate fixed amounts for categories like entertainment or dining, you naturally become more selective about how you spend. The constraint doesn't diminish enjoyment, it increases appreciation for the experiences you choose. Remember that controlling expenses isn't about denying yourself pleasure. It's about ensuring your money serves your long-term goals rather than fleeting impulses. Every dollar you don't spend unnecessarily is a dollar that can work for your future freedom. The wealthy understand that expenses are like fire, useful when controlled, destructive when allowed to spread unchecked. Master this principle, and you create the breathing room necessary for wealth to grow steadily in your life. Part 3. Make thy gold multiply. When Amazon's Jeff Bezos reinvested his early book-selling profits back into warehouse expansion and technology rather than pocketing them, he demonstrated what ancient Babylonians understood. Saved money left idle remains nearly saved money, but money put to work multiplies itself. This distinction separates those who remain financially comfortable from those who achieve true wealth. Your carefully saved coins represent potential energy waiting for activation. Consider how Warren Buffett approached this principle when he bought his first stock at age 11. He purchased 3 shares of Citi Service Preferred at $38 each, watched them drop to $27, held firm, and sold at $40 for a small profit. That early experience taught him that putting money to work requires patience and wisdom, not luck or speculation. The multiplication principle operates through compound growth, where your money earns money and those earnings earn more money. Ray Kroc understood this when he chose to buy the real estate under McDonald's franchises rather than simply collecting franchise fees. While competitors focused on immediate profits, Kroc built a system where every hamburger sold increased the value of his real estate empire. Think of your saved money as seeds in your hand. Seeds stored in a jar remain seeds indefinitely. Seeds planted in fertile ground multiply into forests. The key lies in identifying fertile ground for your financial seeds. This might mean investing in stable businesses, acquiring rental properties, or purchasing index funds that track market growth over decades. But multiplication requires selective patience. Howard Schultz spent years studying European coffee culture before transforming Starbucks from a small Seattle coffee bean retailer into a global empire. He didn't rush to expand. He studied successful models, identified profitable patterns, and then systematically applied what worked. The wealthy create multiple streams of income from their initial savings. They purchase dividend-paying stocks that send quarterly checks. They buy rental properties that generate monthly income. They invest in businesses that grow in value while paying them regularly. Each investment becomes a worker that never sleeps, never takes vacation, and constantly seeks opportunities to multiply. Modern research supports ancient Babylonian wisdom about money multiplication. Studies show that individuals who consistently invest 10% of their income in diversified portfolios typically achieve financial independence within 25 to 30 years, while those who only save without investing require 50 to 75 years to reach similar wealth levels. Your goal isn't to become a financial expert overnight. Start by making small investments in stable, well-established companies or funds. Learn from each decision, track results. Gradually increase your investment knowledge and capital deployment. Remember that multiplication works slowly but inevitably. Every dollar you invest today has the potential to become $10 in your future. The wealthy understand that making money work is more powerful than working for money. Your saved coins await activation. The question is when you'll give them permission to multiply. Part 4. Guard thy treasures from loss. Even the wisest investors can become their own worst enemies when excitement replaces prudence. Warren Buffett once watched dot-com fever consume brilliant minds who abandoned fundamental analysis for get-rich-quick schemes, losing fortunes they spent decades building. The fourth cure teaches perhaps the most painful lesson in wealth building: protecting what you've already accumulated. While making gold multiply focuses on growth, guarding treasures emphasizes preservation. Think of wealth building as constructing a fortress. You need both offensive capabilities to gain territory and defensive walls to hold it. Consider the cautionary tale of Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme, which collapsed in 2008. Sophisticated investors, including hedge fund managers and celebrities, lost over $65 billion because they failed to verify claims that seemed too good to be true. These weren't naive amateurs. They were financially literate individuals who abandoned basic due diligence when presented with consistently high returns. The principle operates on 3 fundamental levels. First, thoroughly research any investment opportunity. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, built his fortune by obsessively analyzing risk factors before committing capital. He famously studies both potential gains and maximum possible losses, often spending more time understanding what could go wrong than what might go right. Second, seek counsel from those who have successfully navigated similar investments. When Howard Schultz considered expanding Starbucks internationally, he didn't rely solely on internal projections. He consulted retail experts who had experience with global expansion, learning from their mistakes and successes before risking company resources. Third, never invest money you cannot afford to lose completely. This isn't pessimism, it's mathematical reality. Even the safest investments carry some risk. Real estate markets crash, established companies fail, and economic conditions change unpredictably. The wealthy understand that preservation often matters more than aggressive growth. The most dangerous moment for any investor comes after a series of successful decisions. Confidence transforms into overconfidence, leading to larger risks and reduced scrutiny. Professional traders combat this tendency by maintaining strict position limits and stop-loss protocols, regardless of recent performance. Ask yourself this question before every financial decision: what would happen if I lost this entire investment tomorrow? If the answer involves fundamental lifestyle changes or jeopardizes your financial security, the risk exceeds prudent limits. Your goal isn't to avoid all risk. That's impossible. Instead, take calculated risks with money whose loss won't devastate your financial foundation. The fourth cure reminds us that wealth preservation requires constant vigilance. Markets reward patience and punish haste. Your growing treasure represents countless hours of labor and disciplined saving. Guard it accordingly, and it will serve you faithfully for decades to come. Chapter 3. The 5 Laws of Gold and Protection. Part 1. Gold comes to those who save. When Warren Buffett purchased his first stock at age 11, using money saved from delivering newspapers, he demonstrated a principle that has created more millionaires throughout history than any lottery or inheritance. Consistent saving magnetizes wealth with mathematical certainty. The science behind this phenomenon becomes clear when examining real-world examples. In 1970, Ronald Read worked as a janitor and gas station attendant in Vermont, earning modest wages his entire career. Yet when he died in 2014, his estate was worth $8 million. Read's secret wasn't complex investment strategies or insider knowledge. He simply saved 20% of every paycheck for decades and invested in companies he understood. This mirrors the behavior studied by economist Thomas Stanley in The Millionaire Next Door. His research revealed that 80% of America's millionaires are first-generation wealthy, meaning they built their fortunes through disciplined saving rather than inheritance. These individuals consistently saved between 15 to 20% of their income, regardless of their profession or starting salary. Consider the mathematical reality. Saving $200 monthly from age 25 to 65, assuming a conservative 7% annual return, results in approximately $525,000. The same person starting at age 35 accumulates only $245,000. This demonstrates why gold gravitates toward those who establish saving habits early and maintain them consistently. Ann Scheiber provides another compelling example. Working as an IRS auditor earning $3,150 annually in 1940s New York, she lived frugally and invested her savings systematically. When she died in 1995, her portfolio was worth $22 million. Scheiber proved that consistent saving combined with patient investing transforms modest incomes into substantial wealth. The principle operates because saved money creates what financial experts call opportunity capital. When market downturns occur or investment opportunities arise, savers possess the resources to act. During the 2008 financial crisis, those with savings could purchase stocks at dramatically reduced prices while others struggled to meet basic expenses. This law also reflects compound interest's power, which Einstein allegedly called the eighth wonder of the world. Each dollar saved begins earning returns immediately, and those returns generate additional returns. Over time, this creates exponential growth that seems almost magical to those who haven't experienced it. Modern research confirms this ancient wisdom. A Federal Reserve study found that households saving at least 10% of their income consistently for 20 years had median net worth 7 times higher than non-savers, even when controlling for income differences. The act of saving itself creates wealth-building momentum. The most successful savers treat saving as a non-negotiable expense, paying themselves first before addressing other obligations. They automate transfers to savings accounts, making the process effortless and removing emotional decisions from wealth accumulation. This fundamental law requires no special knowledge, connections, or starting capital, only the discipline to consistently set aside a portion of earnings. Gold truly does come to those who save, not through mystical attraction, but through the proven mathematics of compound growth and the opportunities that accumulated capital provides. Part 2. Invest only in what you understand. Warren Buffett once famously said he doesn't invest in technology companies he doesn't understand, a principle that cost him billions when he avoided Amazon and Google for years. Yet this same wisdom has protected countless investors from spectacular losses, proving that sometimes what you don't invest in matters more than what you do. The second law of gold demands investors stay within their circle of competence. When Arkad speaks of this principle, he shares the cautionary tale of his friend who lost everything chasing ventures beyond his grasp. This ancient wisdom finds modern validation in the dot-com crash of 2000, where brilliant engineers invested retirement savings in companies whose business models they couldn't explain to their spouses. Consider the real estate investment trusts that collapsed during the 2008 financial crisis. Many investors poured money into complex mortgage-backed securities without understanding the underlying mechanics. They saw impressive returns from neighbors and colleagues, but couldn't explain how these instruments actually generated profits. When the housing market shifted, these investors lost everything because they had no framework for assessing the risks they had unknowingly accepted. The principle extends beyond avoiding losses to maximizing gains. Peter Lynch, who managed the Magelda Fund to extraordinary returns, built his investment philosophy around this concept. He studied companies whose products he encountered daily, observing busy Dunkin' Donuts locations, noting the popularity of Hanes pantyhose, watching teenagers flock to the Gap. Lynch understood these businesses because he could see their operations, evaluate their competition, and assess their market position through direct observation. This approach requires honest self-assessment. What industries do you truly comprehend? Can you explain how a company generates revenue, identify its competitive advantages, and recognize potential threats to its business model? If you work in healthcare, you might understand pharmaceutical companies better than most. If you're in retail, you can evaluate consumer brands with insight that financial analysts might miss. The challenge lies in resisting opportunities that seem too good to pass up. Cryptocurrency investments have tested this principle repeatedly. While blockchain technology offers genuine innovations, many investors bought digital assets they couldn't explain to their children. Some made fortunes, but many others lost significant portions of their savings chasing trends they didn't understand. Smart investors create investment criteria based on their knowledge base. They develop simple questions. How does this company make money? What could disrupt this business? Do I understand the industry dynamics? Can I evaluate whether management is competent? These filters eliminate most opportunities, but the remaining investments offer genuine insight advantages. The wisdom isn't about avoiding all risk or sticking only to familiar companies. It's about ensuring you can make informed decisions based on understanding rather than hope. When you truly comprehend an investment, you can hold through temporary setbacks, recognize when fundamentals change, and make rational decisions during market volatility. This knowledge becomes your greatest protection against the emotional decisions that destroy wealth. Part 3. Avoid investments promising unrealistic returns. Bernie Madoff's investors believed they had discovered financial magic when promised consistent 10 to 12% annual returns regardless of market conditions. Over 2 decades, this wizard of Wall Street attracted billions from sophisticated investors, celebrities, and charities before his $65 billion Ponzi scheme collapsed in 2008. Proving that promises too good to be true inevitably are. The mathematics of extraordinary returns should trigger immediate skepticism. When someone guarantees 30% annual returns with no risk, they're essentially claiming they can double your money every 2.4 years. If such risk-free returns existed, every pension fund and insurance company would pour their assets into these opportunities, quickly eliminating the premium. The absence of major institutional investors in high-return schemes often signals danger. History repeatedly demonstrates this pattern. The dot-com bubble promised internet companies would revolutionize profits overnight. Real estate flippers in 2005 insisted home prices only moved upward. Cryptocurrency promoters in 2017 claimed digital coins could only appreciate. Each bubble attracted investors who abandoned fundamental analysis for the comfort of collective delusion. Consider Charles Ponzi himself, whose 1920 postal arbitrage scheme promised 50% returns in 45 days. Early investors received payments as promised, creating powerful word-of-mouth marketing. But Ponzi was simply redistributing new investor money to earlier participants. When new investments slowed, the entire structure collapsed within months, destroying $20 million in savings. The psychological appeal of unrealistic promises exploits our desire for shortcuts. We want to believe someone has discovered a secret formula that bypasses the hard work of building wealth gradually. This thinking ignores that legitimate investments carry proportional risks. Higher potential returns require accepting greater uncertainty, longer time horizons, or specialized knowledge. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway averaged 20% annual returns over 5 decades, making him one of history's most successful investors. Yet even Buffett experienced losing years and significant drawdowns. His success came through disciplined value investing, extensive research, and patient capital allocation, not guaranteed returns. Legitimate investments fluctuate with market conditions, economic cycles, and company performance. They require research, monitoring, and acceptance of temporary losses. Promoters who guarantee specific returns either lack understanding of investment realities or intentionally deceive investors. The antidote involves asking probing questions. How exactly do they generate these returns? Why aren't institutional investors participating? What happens during economic downturns? Can they provide audited financial statements? Legitimate opportunities welcome scrutiny and provide transparent answers. Modern variations include cryptocurrency schemes, forex trading systems, and real estate academies promising quick wealth. The fundamental warning remains constant. Sustainable wealth building requires time, patience, and accepting market rate returns for the risks undertaken. Those promising otherwise are either deluded or dishonest. Smart investors recognize that steady 7 to 10% annual returns through diversified portfolios often outperform spectacular promises that ultimately deliver nothing. The tortoise consistently defeats the hare in wealth accumulation, just as Clason's ancient wisdom predicted. Part 4. Seek wise counsel for investment. Warren Buffett credits his investing success to the advice of Benjamin Graham and Charlie Munger. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater Associates into the world's largest hedge fund by creating a culture where colleagues constantly challenged each other's thinking. These billionaire investors understood something fundamental. Even the most successful people rely heavily on wise counsel to make better decisions with their money. The final law of gold protection demands that you actively seek guidance from those who have successfully accumulated and preserved wealth. This principle directly contradicts the modern tendency to research investments alone, using internet forums and social media advice. Consider how differently things might unfold when you consult someone who has actually weathered multiple market cycles versus someone sharing theories they've never tested with real capital. Charles Schwab, the discount brokerage pioneer, regularly meets with a personal board of advisors despite decades of financial experience. He recognizes that blind spots develop naturally and outside perspectives prevent costly mistakes. Similarly, successful family offices employ teams of specialists because wealthy families understand that complex financial decisions benefit from multiple expert viewpoints. The key lies in identifying advisors whose interests align with yours. Fee-only financial planners who charge hourly rates rather than commissions often provide more objective guidance. They profit from your success rather than from selling specific products. Real estate investors benefit from consulting experienced property managers, successful landlords, and knowledgeable contractors before making purchases. Each brings unique insights that prevent expensive oversights. However, seeking counsel requires discernment. The neighbor who boasts about stock market gains during a bull market may lack experience handling bear markets. The financial advisor pushing complex products might prioritize commissions over your financial well-being. Effective advisors demonstrate their expertise through consistent results over many years, not just recent victories. Professional investors institutionalize this wisdom through investment committees. Berkshire Hathaway's annual meetings attract thousands precisely because Buffett and Munger share their decision-making processes publicly. They consistently emphasize consulting others, reading extensively, and questioning their assumptions before committing capital. Smart wealth builders create informal advisory networks. They cultivate relationships with successful business owners, experienced investors, and knowledgeable professionals across different industries. Regular conversations with these mentors provide ongoing education and reality checks when considering new opportunities. The ancient wisdom remains remarkably relevant. Your money grows faster and stays safer when guided by collective intelligence rather than individual judgment alone. Those who consistently build wealth recognize that seeking counsel isn't weakness. It's strategic advantage that compounds over time. Chapter 4. Tales of Determination and Financial Wisdom. Part 1. The Camel Trader's Road to Redemption. When FedEx founder Frederick Smith nearly destroyed his company through poor financial decisions in its early days, he faced the same crushing weight that drove ancient Babylon's most notorious debtor to flee into the desert. The difference between collapse and redemption often lies not in the magnitude of our mistakes, but in our willingness to face them with methodical precision. Bansir's transformation from financial outcast to respected merchant mirrors countless modern recovery stories. After years of reckless spending and borrowed luxury, he found himself stripped of dignity, fleeing creditors across desert sands. Yet his redemption began with a simple recognition that many bankrupt entrepreneurs discover. The problem wasn't external circumstances, but internal discipline. The structured approach Bansir developed resonates powerfully with contemporary debt recovery methods. He allocated precisely 1/10 of his earnings to personal needs, another 10th to debt repayment, and dedicated the remainder to living expenses. This rigid framework prevented the emotional spending that had previously derailed his finances. Modern financial advisors recognize this as the foundation of successful debt consolidation programs. Consider Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method, used by millions to escape financial bondage. Like Bansir's systematic approach, it prioritizes psychological victories alongside mathematical progress. Both methods acknowledge that debt recovery requires more than spreadsheets. It demands emotional discipline and consistent execution. Bansir's story demonstrates that sustainable financial recovery emerges from accepting complete responsibility for past decisions while committing to structured future behavior. The Camel trader's journey reveals a crucial truth about financial rehabilitation. Shame becomes fuel for transformation when channeled properly. Instead of hiding from his creditors, Bansir approached each one personally, explaining his systematic repayment plan. This transparency built trust and demonstrated genuine commitment to restoration. Modern bankruptcy attorneys often counsel clients to adopt similar approaches, finding that creditors respond more favorably to honest communication than avoidance. Bansir's decade-long climb back to prosperity illustrates the compounding power of consistent small actions. Each month, his disciplined allocation built credibility with creditors, while developing personal financial habits. By year 3, his reputation had improved enough to secure better trading opportunities. By year 7, former creditors were approaching him for business partnerships. The psychological transformation proved equally important. Bansir's early years were marked by impulsive decisions and borrowed confidence. His redemption period forced him to find satisfaction in delayed gratification and measured progress. This internal shift, more than any external technique, enabled his sustained success. What makes Bansir's story particularly relevant today is its emphasis on personal accountability over external blame. Unlike many modern financial recovery narratives that focus on systemic problems or bad luck, his tale places responsibility squarely on individual choices and daily habits. This perspective, while sometimes harsh, offers genuine hope for those willing to accept its demanding requirements. The merchant's final prosperity came not from clever investments or lucky breaks, but from years of consistent application of simple principles. His wealth grew because his character had been fundamentally rebuilt through the discipline of structured debt repayment. Part 2. Tarkad's Struggles and Lessons in Debt. When Tarkad first appeared at the gates of Babylon, with nothing but debts following him like hungry wolves, few would have predicted his eventual transformation. His story stands as perhaps the most sobering reminder that financial ruin often begins with a single poor decision, then multiplies through the compound effect of borrowed hope. Tarkad's descent started with what seemed reasonable. He borrowed modest amounts to expand his leather goods business, confident that increased inventory would generate sufficient profits to repay the loans quickly. This pattern mirrors countless modern entrepreneurs who discover that initial success can breed dangerous overconfidence. The leather merchant's early profits convinced him that debt was simply a tool, not realizing he was gradually becoming its servant. His borrowing accelerated when competition increased. Rather than adjusting his business model or accepting smaller profits, Tarkad chose to borrow more heavily to undercut rivals and maintain his lifestyle. This decision reflects a common psychological trap documented in behavioral economics research. People often increase risky behavior when facing potential losses, rather than accepting smaller setbacks. The mathematics of compound debt eventually overwhelmed Tarkad's earning capacity. Each month, interest consumed larger portions of his income, while his ability to generate new revenue declined. His creditors began demanding payment, forcing him to borrow from new sources to satisfy old obligations. This cycle, familiar to anyone who has studied modern credit card debt spirals, creates an ever-tightening noose around debtors. What makes Tarkad's awakening particularly instructive is its brutal honesty about personal responsibility. Unlike Bansir, who faced external circumstances that contributed to his downfall, Tarkad's problems stemmed entirely from his own choices. He had confused borrowed money with earned wealth, treating credit as if it were actual income. His transformation began when he stopped making excuses and started recording every debt systematically. This simple act of acknowledgement forced him to confront the true scope of his obligations. Modern debt counselors use similar techniques, requiring clients to list all debts before creating repayment strategies. Tarkad's recovery plan involved radical lifestyle changes that many today would find unbearable. He moved to cheaper quarters, eliminated all non-essential expenses, and worked additional hours to generate extra income specifically for debt repayment. His approach demonstrated that escaping debt requires temporary sacrifice of comfort and pride. The most valuable lesson from Tarkad's experience concerns prevention rather than cure. His story illustrates how easily reasonable borrowing can transform into financial bondage when combined with overconfidence and poor planning. His eventual success came not from clever financial maneuvers, but from accepting harsh realities and committing to years of disciplined repayment. Modern parallels to Tarkad's journey appear daily in bankruptcy courts and credit counseling offices, where individuals discover that borrowed prosperity creates only the illusion of wealth while building very real chains of obligation. Part 3. The Clay Tablets Revealing Practical Financial Steps. When archaeologists discovered thousands of clay tablets in ancient Babylon, they found something remarkable beyond historical artifacts. Detailed records of financial transactions, investment agreements, and wealth-building strategies that remain surprisingly relevant today. These tablets prove that the fundamental principles of money management transcend time periods and technological advances. Consider how Dave Ramsey built his empire on principles that mirror ancient Babylonian wisdom. After his own financial collapse in the 1980s, Ramsey developed a system based on paying yourself first, living below your means, and systematic debt elimination. His approach directly echoes the clay tablet wisdom: allocate 1/10 of earnings to savings before any other expenses. This ancient formula appears deceptively simple, yet most people struggle with implementation because they attempt to save whatever remains after spending rather than treating savings as the first priority. Warren Buffett demonstrates another clay tablet principle through his legendary frugality despite immense wealth. He still lives in the same Omaha house he purchased in 1958 for $31,500. This behavior reflects the ancient wisdom of distinguishing between necessary expenses and desires masquerading as needs. The tablets revealed that successful Babylonian merchants consistently spent less than they earned, regardless of income increases. The concept of making money work through investment appears throughout these ancient records. Modern examples validate this timeless approach. Ann Schreiber, a government auditor who died in 1995, transformed a modest salary into $22 million through consistent investing over 5 decades. She exemplified the tablet wisdom of putting saved money to work rather than hoarding it. Her strategy involved purchasing quality stocks and holding them for decades, allowing compound growth to multiply her wealth. Education formed another critical element recorded on these tablets. The ancient merchants understood that knowledge about money management required continuous learning. Today's most successful investors, from Ray Dalio to Peter Lynch, emphasize that financial education never ends. Markets evolve, but the principles of risk assessment, diversification, and patience remain constant. The tablets also documented detailed budgeting systems that tracked every expenditure. This practice finds modern expression in zero-based budgeting, where every dollar receives specific assignment before spending begins. Companies like Unilever have successfully implemented this approach, reducing costs while improving financial control. Perhaps most importantly, these ancient records show that wealth building requires time and consistency, rather than dramatic moves or market timing. The tablets document steady, methodical progress over years and decades. This wisdom directly contradicts modern tendencies toward quick financial solutions and get-rich-quick schemes. What makes these clay tablet principles endure across millennia? They address unchanging human nature and mathematical realities. Income minus expenses equals the foundation for wealth building. This simple equation worked in ancient Babylon and functions identically today, regardless of economic complexity or technological advancement. Part 4. Lasting importance of discipline and planning. The difference between those who build lasting wealth and those who struggle financially comes down to one critical distinction: the willingness to trade immediate gratification for long-term security. Warren Buffett exemplifies this principle perfectly. At age 93, he still lives in the same Omaha house he purchased in 1958 for $31,500, demonstrating that wealth accumulation requires consistent restraint rather than flashy displays of prosperity. The clay tablets from ancient Babylon revealed a profound truth that modern psychology confirms through extensive research. Stanford's famous marshmallow experiment, conducted by Walter Mischel, trapped children who could delay gratification by waiting for a second marshmallow. These children consistently outperformed their peers academically and financially throughout their lives. This same capacity for delayed gratification separates successful investors from those who chase market trends and quick profits. Consider the contrasting approaches of two technology entrepreneurs. Steve Jobs accumulated substantial wealth through methodical product development and strategic planning spanning decades. Meanwhile, countless dot-com entrepreneurs during the late 1990s focused on immediate returns and flashy spending, ultimately losing everything when the market corrected. The difference wasn't intelligence or opportunity, it was disciplined planning versus impulsive decision-making. Financial discipline manifests in surprisingly mundane ways. Ray Kroc, McDonald's founder, meticulously tracked every expense and revenue stream for years before achieving massive success. He understood that small, consistent actions compound into extraordinary results over time. Similarly, John D. Rockefeller kept detailed ledgers from his teenage years, documenting every penny earned and spent. This habit of careful record-keeping became the foundation for building one of history's greatest fortunes. The mathematical reality behind wealth building remains unchanged since Babylonian times. Compound interest functions identically, whether calculating returns on ancient trade investments or modern stock portfolios. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, yet most people fail to harness its power because they lack the patience required for long-term thinking. Modern behavioral economics research by Daniel Kahneman demonstrates why planning matters more than intelligence or market knowledge. People consistently make irrational financial decisions when operating without structured systems. Those who establish automatic savings plans, predetermined investment schedules, and written financial goals achieve significantly better outcomes than equally intelligent individuals who rely on willpower alone. The ancient Babylonian wealth builders understood something that remains true today. Money follows systems, not emotions. Their clay tablets document systematic approaches to income allocation, debt management, and investment strategies. These weren't complex financial instruments requiring advanced degrees. They were simple, repeatable processes that anyone could implement with sufficient discipline. What separates successful wealth builders across all eras is their recognition that financial success requires treating money management as a craft requiring daily practice rather than occasional attention. Like master craftsmen, they develop skills through consistent application rather than sporadic effort.